pass my knowledge to you, and I hope it would be of some help to all of you. So post lunch, we have business studies session. So we'll see how we can get rid of the phobia of business studies. All commerce students, we have economics, we have accountancy, statistics, computer science, we have all subjects, including business studies. So when we talk about other subjects, they seem to be much easier and much simple when compared to business studies. Why it is simple? Because they seem to be practical subjects, but business studies happens to be one of the only theory subjects wherein you'll be attending the whole paper is theory. You're supposed to write the whole paper. The whole 100 marks paper would be a theory paper. So how do we get rid of the phobia of business studies? As per my experience and my experience from my evaluation, so I feel people or students, they lack somewhere behind in business studies, scoring good marks in business studies. So today we will be getting rid of fear of writing business studies or studying business studies. First thing that I would tell you is business studies is a very good subject. Business studies full of knowledge and full of relevance. Okay, when compared to your other subjects. Okay, so first thing is you have to love the subject. If you love the subject will definitely love you back. So how do we approach business studies? From all students I have seen, or to all students to whom I have taught business studies, I just hear one word or one statement that they always say. Business studies happens to be a difficult subject. No, it's not a difficult subject. It's a unique subject. See, like, for example, if you have to eat a fruit, we have so many fruits. We have bananas, apples, grapes, mangoes. We have different fruits. So many fruits we have. So when we eat fruits, every time we take a fruit, we cut it in a different way. We crack it in a different way. The same way, when compared to other subjects, business studies needs a unique approach. You need to approach it in a different way. The first approach has to be, you have to think, or it is, you need not just think. Business studies is a unique subject as well as a sweeter subject. Okay, so the first thing that you have to understand and first thing that you have to put to your mind is that it's a unique subject and it needs a unique way of approach. And this is a subject wherein you can put your creativity on the paper. Okay, and it is full of relevance. You learn business studies is apt for all the period. Even if you finish your PUC, go to degree, do whatever you want. It is the most apt subject and it has a continuation to all levels of education that you pursue. So that is a basic thing that I wanted to tell you. Okay, now this is the syllabus that we have. We have around 12 chapters: nature and significance of management, principles of management, business environment, planning, organizing, staffing, directing, controlling, financial markets, financial management, marketing, consumer protection, and entrepreneurship development. So these are the chapters that we will be studying under business studies. So now moving on to the blueprint. This is the main thing that you have to work on. So you can observe on the screen, you can see the marks of every chapter. Okay, so the first chapter comes for 11 marks, and I always tell the students to concentrate on those subjects that gives you higher marks. Okay, so you have to concentrate on those subjects that give those chapters that give you higher marks. So for example, you can see chapter number 11 that gives you 19 marks. So 19, and you have 2 11s, and 7 chapter you have 11 marks, 6 chapter you have 15 marks. Okay, so the first thing that you have to, before you sit for studying business studies, collect all the material, collect the blueprint. When you collect the blueprint, you will know which chapter you can concentrate more on. Anyway, at the end of the session or at the end of the today's presentations, the organizers will anyway share you the material. So before you sit for studying, my first tip is that you have to collect all the notes, all the materials, so that you have things, or you can get ready, you can physically get ready to start reading the subject or start studying the subject. So this is the blueprint of the business studies subject. So if you can see on the screen, the major chapters would be chapter 11 and chapter 6, wherein you will have higher weightage. Okay, so as per as my experience in teaching this subject, if at all you study chapter 11, 10 and 9 perfectly, you are definitely going to score 35. Definitely 100% confidence, keep 100% confidence that you will be able to score at least 35 if you just read 3 chapters. Then imagine if you read all the 12 chapters, right? So this would be the question paper pattern. So we have 5 sections, A, B, C, D, and E. So section A would be 1 markers. Okay, so you will have 12 questions and you're supposed to be answering only 10 questions. And section B are supposed to be 2 markers. So you will have 12 2-mark questions and you're supposed to answer only 10 questions. Then C would be a 4 marker. So you'll have 10 questions, out of which you're supposed to answer only 7 questions. Then D is supposed to be 8-mark questions. You will have 6 questions. Out of that, you're supposed to answer only 4 questions. So E is supposed to be practical oriented questions. You'll have 3 questions and you're supposed to answer only 2 questions. And I will tell you how your practical oriented questions will come in my future slides. Okay, so how do you study business studies? So this is a major thing that you have to be thinking about. How do you study business studies? So the first thing that you have to do is, I told you to collect all the materials. First thing that you have to do is keep all your notes ready, keep all your study materials and your question, for everything. Our PU board has provided detailed questions. I mean, if you the question bank also will be shared to you at the end of the session. So for what you have to do, the first thing is take a photocopy of the question bank. Okay, it is just a set of questions from all the chapters. If you get ready for those questions, take it from me, nothing apart from that question bank is going to come from your come for your examination. Nothing else would come. So if you just get ready for whatever questions that are there in the question bank, that is more than enough. Okay, so when you start with practical oriented questions, okay, so please start with practical oriented questions. You will have 12 questions. I'll just for a second, I'll stop sharing the screen and share another screen. Okay, so this is a question bank and here is a set of questions. You have 12 questions. Okay, so once go through all the questions, and the first thing that you have to do is write all the questions and answers together. Okay, take a notebook, keep a notebook, say 100 pages notebook or a 200 pages one. Take a notebook. First thing you have to do is write down the practical oriented questions and answers. So for example, the first one. So in the first one, you're supposed to do, for the first practical oriented question, you're supposed to do the levels of management. You're supposed to draw the levels of management. And it is just a triangle with 3 partitions, right? So you might have seen it. So this question will get 5 marks. Okay. So the first thing I suggest you to do is take a notebook, write down all the questions and answers, especially for practical oriented questions. And I will tell you how it might appear in your examination. Say you have 12 questions, right? Out of 12 questions, from the first 4 questions, you will get the first one. Okay, in your examination, you'll be getting 3 practical oriented questions. Okay, for your section E. Okay, so 3 practical oriented questions you have, and you have 12 chapters. Okay, so when the paper setter, how he or she does the paper is, from the first 4 chapters, he or she will choose any one of the questions, right? So your first question for your practical oriented questions will come from the first 4 chapters, right? And in your next 4 chapters, that is chapter 5, 6, 7, and 8, you are going to get your second question. Okay. Then for your third one, it is going to come from 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay. So your first practical oriented question that would appear in your question paper, it would come from 1 to 4, and second question would come from 5 to 8, and your third question would come from 9 to 12. Okay. So if you prepare for these many questions, 10 marks definitely you are going to get. Okay. So first 4 you will get one question, 5 to 8 you will get another question, and 9 to 12 you are going to get another question. So I hope I have made this clear. Okay. Then moving on to the next one. So the next thing that we will be talking about is your 2-mark questions. Okay, so the next thing that you have to get ready is for your 2-mark questions. So first thing you have to study, but when you start studying business studies, first thing you will study all practical oriented questions. You'll write all the questions and you'll write all the answers for the practical oriented questions, and you are going to keep it ready. Then the second thing that you will do is you will write or you will study all 2-mark questions. So how do you study all 2-mark question, or why do you have to study 2-mark question in the second level? Because most of your 2-mark questions are going to repeat for 4-mark as well as 8-mark as well as 1-mark. Okay, so if you study 2-mark questions, say for example you get a question for 8-mark question, say define management and explain the characteristics of management. So this question is from chapter 1. So if you get this question, at least if you have not studied the characteristics of management, you would have only studied definition of management. At least if you write the definition, you will get a 2-mark there, right? So 2 marks would repeat in all the other sections, whether it is 1, 4 or 8 marks. Okay, so the first thing you will study practical oriented question. Second thing you will do your 2-mark questions, right? So 2-mark questions are very important. So in the question bank you have all the 2-mark questions. I mean, for all the chapters, for all the 12 chapters, you have 2-mark questions. So the second thing that you will be studying is 2 markers. Then the next one you will be studying will be 8-mark questions. So what is the advantage of studying in this way? See, when you study 8 markers after 2 marks, 8 marks questions will be, I mean, that particular section will come for 32 marks, right? So the first section, I mean, the first one, practical oriented questions will have 10 marks, and your 2 marks will have 20 marks, right? So you'll have to write 10 questions and you'll have 10 2-mark questions. So you will be getting 20 marks there. So 20 plus 10, 30. So 30 marks is guaranteed. First, if you read practical oriented questions and your 2-mark questions. So 30 marks is guaranteed there. Next one is an 8-marker. So how do you study 8-marker? 8 markers will be studied on the basis of few tips that I give you in my other slides. Okay. So why I will ask you to study 8 marks is, when you study 8 marks, it will help you answering in 4 marks too. Okay. So for example, say if you read an 8-mark question which says features of coordination, or you read advantages of planning and disadvantages of planning. If you read this question, say for 4 marks, they ask only the advantages of planning or only the disadvantages of planning. So if you're perfect with your 8 marks, okay, then it will be very easy for you to answer your 4 marks too. Then after your 5-mark, 2-mark and 8 markers, you will read your 1 markers. Okay, so 1-mark questions is what you will be studying in the 4th level. Okay, then later you will be studying 4 markers. Take it from me, the 1 markers as well as the 4 markers, when you complete reading the 3 parts, that is practical oriented questions, 2 markers as well as 8 markers, After finishing all the 3 levels, if you then go to 1 markers and 4 markers, take it from me, it will just be like a revision of the chapters. Okay, so the first 3 stages are very important. Okay, then 1 markers and 4 markers, automatically you can learn it. If you complete reading 5 mark, 2 mark and 8 mark, automatically you will feel 1 mark and 4 marks are very easy. Okay, so please follow this order so that it will help you get good marks. Next, so how do you crack? I told you have to read practical oriented questions, 2 mark questions, 8 mark questions, 1 mark, 4 mark. I gave you an order to study, but how to study, how you can follow this order? First thing, make your own notes. Whatever notes that is given by either me or any other lecturer or your guide or your question bank, all these things are given by experts. Okay, so we are not asking you to become an expert. We want you to learn the subject, right? So if you want to learn the subject, the first thing that you have to do is you have to read and make your own notes. So the first tip, or in order to make business studies easy to you, the first thing that you have to follow is you have to make your own notes. You read the definition or you read the meaning, you read features, read everything, but later come up with your own notes. Okay, come up with how you want to write. Okay, so because why I give you, or why I feel this is the best tip is when you write your exams. I know every students become, every student will become an author of, they'll author their own definition, they'll author their own feature, they'll come up with new concepts. Okay, so in order to avoid all those things, so what you have to do is you have to first make your own notes. Say for example, you take up characteristics of management. Okay, so once you start reading characteristics of management, you have to start making your own notes. Say the first characteristic says that it is a goal-oriented process. I'm sure you all know what a goal is. Okay, and you all know what a management is. So you have to write the notes in your way. Okay, the way that you feel is more comfortable. Okay, so once you write the notes, the next thing that you have to do is you have to teach yourself. Okay, these tips seems to be very silly or seems to be very easy, but when you do it, it seems, it will definitely be effective. Okay, so first you make your own notes. Second thing, you teach yourself. Maybe you are good at teaching, or everybody will be good at teaching, right? So what you have to do is you teach yourself. Say I told you the example of characteristics. You have written management is a goal oriented process. That is what is the first characteristics. Then you make notes for that. What do you write? Every management comes up with its own goal, and once it has a goal, it tries to achieve the goal. So that happens to be the explanation for the first point. Now, whatever you have written, whatever you have made notes of, keep telling it to yourself. Okay, so that is a second tip that I give. Okay, so keep telling it to yourself. Tell yourself that management is a goal-oriented process. Why or how do you explain it? Every management, every organization will have a goal, and every organization has to achieve its goal. So what management does is management helps the organization to achieve its goal. Okay, so if you keep telling this to yourself, try to read business studies with common sense. Okay, common sense is very important when you read business studies. In business studies, we don't ask you to write theories that is given by some X and Y, X, Y, and Z. Okay, so what we ask you to do is we ask you to put the common sense on the paper. Okay, so don't think that only if you write the terminologies that are there exactly in the notes or exactly in your textbooks, then you will get marks. No, your answer has to be practical, or your answer has to be sensible. Okay, so after you make notes, after you tell yourself what you mean by that, meaning in other words, you have to understand the concept. Okay, then the third one that you have to follow is, third tip that you have to follow is be consistent. Consistent meaning every day you have to do it. If you study business studies today, and the next the second round of studies that you make will come on second week or the next week, then there is no use. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to be very, very, very consistent. How consistent? Every day in 24 hours. Okay, you every day has 24 hours. Okay, in 24 hours, just study business studies for 24 minutes. You have plenty of time till your examination. Now is never late. Don't think that I have no time now, the exams are already coming. No, you still have time. Okay, so in out of 24 hours, just study for 24 minutes. If you study for 24 minutes, I'm damn sure that you would score more than 85 in business studies. Business studies is that subject where you don't need to work hard or buy hard things. You just need to make your own notes, understand the concept, and be consistent. Okay, so what in the third tip that I tell you is, please be consistent. So please be consistent and just study for 24 minutes in a day. Okay, that's your third tip. And the fourth tip that I will tell you is, if you study for 20 minutes, or say if you out of 24 minutes that you study, if you study for say 5 minutes or 6 minutes, or just say you will just study one particular concept, say you will study the concept of say features of coordination, or you will just study the concept of factors affecting price determination. Okay, if you're told you study one particular concept, study the concept for say 5 minutes or 6 minutes. The remaining thing has to be just practicing. You keep reading that, rereading it, reciting it. Okay, say it's like if you learn all of you remember ABCD that was taught to you in your nursery level very well. Why? Because you keep on reciting it. You kept on reciting the same thing, right? So the same tip you have to apply here. If you read just one concept, say you read only the concept of management, or you just read the definition of management. Once you read it, keep reciting it. Okay, keep practicing the same thing. Write it for 5 times or 10 times or 20 times till you understand it. Okay, so read it, reread it, keep reading it. Okay, so that is your fourth tip. Then the next one is use of acronyms. I will tell you how you can make your own acronyms. Okay, acronyms meaning short forms. Okay, so use abbreviations, or you can make your own points and you can make your own short forms to keep your answers in your mind. Then the last tip, I know it seems to be very silly, but still it will work. Use red pen for practicing. Please, when you write or when you read business studies, you can't pass. You have to read and write. All other subjects you read and pass, but business studies you have to read and write. Write is the mantra for getting good marks in business studies. Okay, so keep reading it and writing it. Okay, you have to keep writing business studies. So when you practice writing it, use a red gel pen. I know this tip is very, but this will work. This will definitely work. It is my experience because I have experienced on it on all the students. This is an experimented tip. Okay, so buy a new red gel pen which is dark. Okay, so whenever you read something, write it. Okay, write it in red gel pen. Write it once and keep rewriting it. Okay, when you rewrite it, your brain tends to remember it. Okay, because red is a bright color. Okay, so red is easily recognized by the brain. So that is the scientific reason behind it. Okay, so keep writing in red pen. So whenever you practice writing business studies, use a red pen. Okay, so you have to write pages together, whether you write it for 5 times or you write it for 10 times. Okay, so the more times you write, the more frequently your brain tends to remember the things that you have written. Okay, so keep writing in red pen while you practice. What are the things that you shouldn't be doing when studying business studies? Don't study without understanding the concept. You don't understand the concept, and if you keep by hearting, even if you by heart it for 1,000 times, there is 100% chances that you forget in the examination. In your exams, you're already tensed, right? Above the tension, you can't remember whatever you have studied. So the best thing to do is understand the concept and then study. So first you have to understand the concept, then please start studying. So understand, study. Then the second habit that you have to not, or the second thing that you shouldn't do while studying business studies is don't skip your doubts. There's a quote, there's a very old quote. The quote says, a person who asks a question remains a fool for only 5 minutes. A person who doesn't ask a question and keeps the question to himself remains fools forever. Right? So just think whether you want to be a fool for 5 minutes or you want to be a fool forever. Okay? So before you study the concept or you understand the concept, see if you have any doubts. Okay, so you have so many things, so many exposures, you have so many ways in which you can clear your doubts. You can ask your own lecturer, or you can ask a lecturer whom you know or who is ready to help you, or you have YouTube, or you have different medias in which you can clear your doubts, right? So don't keep the doubts to yourself. If you're doubtful about the concept, there are more chances that you will not learn the concept at all. So you have to clear your doubts. Okay, so keep in mind, whenever you get a doubt, don't neglect it. If you neglect it, you remain a fool forever. If you clarify it, maybe if you ask a question to your friend, or if you just ask him to clear your doubt, maybe he would tease you for 5 minutes, that's all. But if you keep the doubt with yourself, then you're going to remain a fool forever. So what? Second tip, keep it in mind, don't skip your doubts. Then and there you have to clear the doubts. Then the third one is, please don't use phones for studying. I know all your notes, because of this pandemic, all notes are there on your phone. All of you have your smartphones. Okay, so we don't want the phones to be smart. We want the students to become smart, right? So what you do is you will take all the photocopies of all the notes. Okay, whether it is first chapter, second chapter, or a very small chapter. If you start using phone, if you study from your phone, then there are more chances of you getting distracted. Tumba bega distract agtira neevu. Okay, so instead of avoiding the distraction, in order to avoid the distraction, please take the photocopies of the notes that is provided to you. Paper ಮೇಲೆ ಇರೋದು ಓದೋದು ಈಸಿ, ರೈಟ್? ಫೋನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋದನ್ನ ಓದಕ್ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಸಡನ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇಡ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಡೂ ಇಸ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಅ ಫೋಟೋ ಕಾಪಿ ಆಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕೀಪ್ ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್ ರೆಡಿ. Then, like an example, the acronym that I told you in my previous slide, I will tell you how to make short forms. Okay, so short forms are called as acronym. Okay, so here are just few examples. Okay, you can make acronyms or short forms for all the questions. If at all you want, in YouTube there is a video which has given, for every concept in business studies, you have short forms that is given to you. Okay, that is ready made in YouTube. If you want, you can download the video or watch the video, sit with a pen and paper and make your own short forms, right? So here are just few examples. Functions of management. So what are the 5 functions of management? Planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. So we have 5 functions of management. How do you remember POSDC? So this is a short form. Okay, so whenever you make notes, whenever you write notes, make this short forms. And for dimensions of business environment, so dimensions of business environment happens to be a 5-mark questions. It is repeated in most of the question papers. So what you can do is you can make short forms of all these things. Okay, so short forms of all these things and keep it ready. Next, features of, I did not tell you, right? So dimensions of business environment, we have political environment, economic environment, socio-cultural environment, technological environment, and legal environment. So these are the 5 environments, 5 different dimensions of business environment. So this is how you have to remember your answers. Then features of management. So we have 7 features, right? So, and this is an 8-mark question. Characteristics or features of nature, everything is the same. So characteristics of management, most likely question that would repeat in, I have seen this question repeated in most of the question papers, right? So what you can do is you're supposed to read or make the short forms. How do you remember the CID PMGG? Okay, so this is a way you can remember it. When I tell my students, I just give a sentence for this. Don't take it offensive. This is just for example or just to help you remember things. See how I teach my students, I tell them that CID Prime Minister Modi is a great gamer. Okay, so this is the short form that I give so that you will be able to remember all these things. Okay, so it is easy to remember if you come up with your own sentences like that. So I will tell you what are the features. So C for continuous process. Management is a continuous process. Then I talks about intangibility. So management is an intangible activity. Then D, management is dynamic, right? Then P, management is all pervasive, meaning uniform. It is common. Okay, it is common to all kinds of management, whether it's a political organization or an economic organization or a socio-cultural organization. It is common to all kinds of organization or all kinds of environment. Then the other M, management is multidimensional. So the M talks about the multidimensional function. Then we have 2 G's. One G is goal oriented, the other G is group activity. So management is a goal oriented process, management is a group activity. So we have 7 different features of management, and it is very easy to remember if you make short forms in this way. So CID PMGG is the characteristics of management. So how do you remember? Continuous process, intangible activity, dynamic, pervasive, multidimensional, goal-oriented, and group activity, right? So this is a short form. Like this, you can make it for all the concepts. Now I'll tell you how you can read your definitions, because definitions are those things that you have to write it in the same way. You can't change the definitions. If you write the definitions in your own way, then the chances of getting full marks are less. Okay, it's not that they'll not give you marks at all, but the chances of getting the whole mark, if it is given for 2 marks, then you might get only 1 mark. Okay, so why lose the other 1 mark? Simply we have an easy tip to study definition. Now, management this is a definition given by Robert L. Trevelyan and M.G. Newport. So what is a definition? See, you can see the sentence, words that are underlined. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to mark it. Okay, so how do you mark it? This happens to be your first point. Okay, and this happens to be your second point. And this is your third point. This happens to be your fourth point. This will be your fifth point. This will be your sixth point. So we have 6 different points or 6 points for studying definitions of management. So what is the first point? Management is a process. That is the first point. Second point, It's process of what? Planning, organizing, actuating, and controlling. Okay, so first point says management is a process. Process of what? Planning, organizing, actuating, and controlling. That's the second point. Third point is for what they're doing all these things for organizations operations. Okay, so to whom they're doing all these things? For organization. Okay, so it's an organization's operations. Then your fourth point says why they're doing all these things, why they're planning, why they're organizing, why controlling, in order to achieve coordination. So in order to have better coordination, they would do all the above process. Then for what they have to coordinate, what all they have to coordinate? They have to coordinate human and material resources. Human resources meaning people, material resources meaning physical resources, machinery, material, all these things comes under material resources, raw materials. Okay, then why they have to do all these things? In order to effectively, in order to achieve effective and efficient attainment of objectives, they have to they have to achieve the objectives or attain the objectives in two ways: effective and efficient. So how do you remember the definition? It is first thing in definition, you have to see who has written the definition. So first point, who has written the definition? According to Robert L. Trevely and M. Jean Newport. So these two people have written the definition. Then the next point says it is a process. Then process of what? Planning, organizing, actuating, and controlling. Then what they're controlling? They're controlling an organization's operations. Why? In order to achieve coordination of what? Human and material resources. What is the objective? In order to have effective and efficient attainment of goals. So you have to write it however it is given to you. So these are the things that is very important for you while you study business studies. Now, one thing, please write it in your notes. The first page of your notes, what you have to write? Practice as if you are worst, but while you perform it, you have to perform it as if you are the best. Okay, so whenever you practice business studies, you have to practice it. Don't be overconfident. Keep practicing, keep practicing, keep writing. It is not enough if you just read business studies. You have to practice it. You have to write and practice. Okay, so while you practice, while you study, practice it as if you are the worst. You don't know anything about business studies. Like that, you have to practice. But while you perform it, while you write your exams, you have to perform it or write it as if you have learned everything. Okay, perform as if you are the best. So what you have to do, write the sentence in your textbook or in your notes in the first sheet, so that every time you open the book, you'll read it and you get motivated to perform. So now you're open for questions. If you have any questions, I would request you to ask questions. If you have any questions, I am happy to take questions from you. Or if you're finding difficult to read any concept, if you tell me the concept, I'll help you out. If you don't have any question, can we take a question paper? Can we just see a question paper? If you have any question, you can ask me questions. You can ask either in English, Kannada, or Hindi. I will try to answer your question. Any concept also. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಟಫ್ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ನ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಆ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಓದೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಎನಿ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್, ಯಾವ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಕೇಳಿ. ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಓದಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಟಫ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದ್ ಯಾವ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಕ್ರ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಹೇಗೆ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಏನು ಡೌಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? You don't have any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Others?
Ma'am, I have doubt in stock exchange.
Yes, Sujata, tell me.
I were confusing in reading stock exchange concept, ma'am.
Stock exchange, what particular concept in stock exchange?
Functions of stock exchange.
Okay, so how can I help you? You want me to give short forms for studying stock exchange, or you want me to give the explanation?
Short form, ma'am.
Short form beka stock exchange ge?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
So ide concept alva ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು, functions
ma'am.
of stock exchange. Okay, so what are the functions? You're comfortable with Kannada or English?
Both, ma'am.
Okay, so what are the different functions of stock exchange? First one, providing liquidity, pricing security, safety of transaction, contributes economic growth, spreading of equity cult, and providing scope for speculation. So whenever you start doing your short forms, what you have to do is ಯಾವ್ದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಈ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡಿಂಗು ಪ್ರೈಸಿಂಗು ಆ ಥರದ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಾರ್ದು, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ನೀವ್ ಯಾವ್ದು ಕೋರ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡಿಟಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡಿಟಿ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಅ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಇಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಎಲ್. ಸೊ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡಿಟಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಬಿಲಿಟಿ. ದೆನ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರೈಸಿಂಗ್, ಯಾವ್ದನ್ನ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್ ನ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಶೇರ್ಸ್ ನ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. On the basis of demand and supply, they will price or they'll determine the price of the shares. Okay, so next concept ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ? Pricing ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Next concept, safety. That is an important word. Then here, economic growth. ಇದೆರಡು important. Next, equity cult. ಇಲ್ಲಿ scope for speculation. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, every time you make a short form, so you will make a short form of important points. Providing ಅಂತ ಇರೋದು, ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಇರೋದು, ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಡ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಇರೋದು, ಆ ಥರದನ್ನ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಾರ್ದು. ಯಾವ್ದು ಎಸೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಎಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇವಾಗ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದು ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಏನು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೇನು, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡಿಟಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಬಿಲಿಟಿ. ಇರೋ ಶೇರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡಿಟಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಬಿಲಿಟಿನ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ಗಳು. ಸೊ ಅದು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್, ಶೇರ್ಗೆ ಆ ಶೇರ್ ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ನ ಡಿಟರ್ಮೈನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆನಾ, ಸೊ ಅದು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್. ಥರ್ಡ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್, ಸೇಫ್ಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್. ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ನ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೇಫ್ಟಿನ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಗೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸೇಫ್ಟಿ ಬೇಕು, ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? ಸೊ ಆ ಸೇಫ್ಟಿನ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಹೆಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಲೀಗಲ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ನೋಡಿ. ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್, ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಲೀಗಲ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ, ವೆಲ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಓಕೆನಾ? ಸೊ ಅದು ಥರ್ಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್. ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್, ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟ್ಸ್ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಗ್ರೋತ್. ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಏನ್ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ? ಎಕನಾಮಿಕಲಿ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು. ಎವ್ರಿ ಕಂಪನಿ ಆರ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ವಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್. ಸೊ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಫಂಡ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ಲಿ ಎಕಾನಮಿ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದೆನ್ ಈಕ್ವಿಟಿ ಕಲ್ಟ್ ನ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಯಾರು ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್ ಬೈ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಏನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಶೇರ್ ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ಫಾರ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟಿಂಗ್ ನ್ಯೂ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬೆಟರ್ ಟ್ರೇಡಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ನ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ನ ಎಜುಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಓಕೆನಾ? ಈಕ್ವಿಟಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಗ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವ ತರ ಶೇರ್ ನ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಯಾವ ತರ ಟ್ರೇಡಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಲೀಗಲ್ ಟ್ರೇಡಿಂಗ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಥವಾ ಬೆಟರ್ ಟ್ರೇಡಿಂಗ್ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಫಿಫ್ತ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸಿಕ್ಸ್ತ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಹೇಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಪ್ರಾವಿಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಲಾಸ್, ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ ಅ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್, ಓಕೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಗ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಹೇಗೆ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಯುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲದನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹೇಗ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀರಾ? ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಟೇಕ್ LPS EES. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ LPS EES, easy to remember. So LPS EES. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಏನು LPS ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡಿಟಿ ಪ್ರೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಸೇಫ್ಟಿ, LPS. EES ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಗ್ರೋತ್, ಈಕ್ವಿಟಿ ಕಲ್ಟ್, ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಈ ತರ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ ಸುಲಭ, ಜ್ಞಾಪಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕೂ ಈಸಿ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಸುಜಾತ, ಐ ಹೋಪ್ ಯುವರ್ ಡೌಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ಡ್.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Any other particular concepts that you want to understand? ವಿಶ್ವನಾಥ್ ಅವರೇ PDFs ಎಲ್ಲ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ at the end of the session. ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ PDF ಗಳನ್ನ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. It will be shared to you in the group. I think we can wind up the session.
Yeah, ma'am. Question paper sessions get course put to close.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see a question paper here. Okay, so idu model question paper, maybe there are slight changes, okay, but this question paper is a standard question paper. Okay, so idral heg answer barita hogtira. So for 1 mark, first when you start writing your answers for your question paper, please start from the last main practical oriented questions na first barbidi. ಓಕೆ, ಯಾಕೆ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಓರಿಯೆಂಟೆಡ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ನ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ಬಿಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ನೀವು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಓರಿಯೆಂಟೆಡ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೀರಾ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಗಿವ್ಸ್ ಯು ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ದ ಪೇಪರ್. ನೀವು ತಗೊಳ್ತಾನೆ 8 mark ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಟೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ 4 mark ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗಿವ್ ಯು ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ವೆನ್ ಯು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ದ when you start answering the question paper, please start from the last main practical oriented questions answer marbidi. And adu first reason ge. Second reason is the evaluator will get a good note or a good impression. First impression is the best impression. First answer sheet alli first page tappa answer baradre, you will lose the impression, right? So practical oriented question na first prepare agi first adanella odbitirtira. So adike it gives you a confidence, and you can first attend the practical oriented questions. Second, you can answer your first main. Okay, first main ಅಲ್ಲಿ 1 mark question, 2 mark questions. So please answer all the questions. ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೂ choice ತಗೋಬೇಡಿ. ಓಕೆನಾ? ಸೊ 1 mark question, 2 mark questions, 100 question ಇರುತ್ತೆ. You'll have 12 questions in each main. So answer all the questions, right? So you will get a confidence to answer further. So 1 mark questions, 2 mark questions. Suppose ನೀವು 12 1 mark questions ಬರ್ದಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ 3 ತಪ್ಪಾಗಿದೆ ಅಥವಾ 2 ತಪ್ಪಾಗೋಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 2 ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ 10 questions will get full marks. Okay, so ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಯೇಟರ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಯಾವ್ದು ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಇಫ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟೇಕನ್ ಚಾಯ್ಸ್, the valuator will consider whichever has got full marks. Okay, so when you answer 1 mark questions and 2 mark questions, try to attempt all the questions. Then when you write 2 mark questions, make sure your 2 mark questions has 2 sentences. 1 sentence barbit bidbedi. So whenever you write 2 mark questions, please write 2 sentences. Okay, for example, what is scalar chain anta kelidru, so that is your 14th question. What is scalar chain anta keldaga, first question bardbidi, first sentence bardbidi, it is one of the principles of management given by Henry Fayol. Adu first sentence agoitu. Second sentence, scalar chain is a formal line that flows from top to bottom in the management. Adunu bardbidi. Okay na? So 2 sentences ಆಯ್ತು. ಸೊ ಯಾವ್ದನ್ನಾದ್ರೂ ಬರಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಇವಾಗ ನಾ ಹೇಳ್ದೆ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಗಿವನ್ ಬೈ ಹೆನ್ರಿ ಫೇಯಾಲ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಸ್ಕೇಲಾರ್ ಚೈನ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಫಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಲೈನ್ ದಟ್ ಫ್ಲೋಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಟಾಪ್ ಟು ಬಾಟಮ್. ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಲೈನ್ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ದಿರೋದನ್ನ ಅಂಡರ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಸೊ 2 marks ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. Okay na? So every time you answer 2 mark questions, please make sure that you write 2 sentences. Okay, then next, attend 8 mark questions. First 5 mark, 1 mark, 2 marks ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ 8 mark questions attend ಮಾಡಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 8 mark questions ನ ಬರೆಯೋದಕ್ಕೆ you need lot of time. You have to write minimum 1.5 page. ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ 1.5 page ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಇರಬೇಕು 8 mark questions ಗೆ. ಇಫ್ ಅಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಅವ್ರು ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ ಮೇಕ್ ಶೋರ್ ಇಫ್ ದೇ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಇನ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು, ನಾವ್ ಅವಾಗ್ಲೇ ಓದಿದ್ವಿ, ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ 7 points, 7 ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಬಟ್ ಅವ್ರು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ನ 8 mark ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ, ಹೇಗ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ? ಎವ್ರಿ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಗಿವ್ ಯು 1 mark. ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? 7 points ಬರೆದ್ರೆ 7 marks ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ 1 mark ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬರೀರಿ ಅಥವಾ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬರೀರಿ. ಸೊ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬರೆದು ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಬರೀರಿ. ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ಬೈ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಹೋಲ್ 8 mark. ಓಕೆನಾ? ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಯು ಫಿನಿಶ್ ಆಫ್ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಲ್ ಯೋರ್ 8 mark questions, ದೆನ್ ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಯೋರ್ 4 mark questions. ಯಾಕೆ 4 mark questions ನ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀಬೇಕು? 10 question ಬರೀಬೇಕು. 10 questionಗೆ ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ನ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಜಸ್ಟ್ ರೈಟ್ ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್, ಆ ಬರ್ದಿರೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಗೆ 2 marks ಆದ್ರೂ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಫ್ ಯು ಜಸ್ಟ್ ರೈಟ್ ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್, ರಿಲೆವೆಂಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್, ಆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್, ಅಟ್ ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ 1 or 2 marks. If you waste time in writing 4 mark questions, then it will be difficult for you to attend 8 mark questions. So order ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗ್ ಬರೀತೀರಾ? First you'll write your practical oriented question, then you'll write your 1 markers, 2 markers, 8 markers, and at the last you'll write the 4 markers. Okay, so this is the order in which you have to write your answer sheets or write your question paper. Okay.